Oh, are you Rusty? Yeah. Oh, awesome. That's what I was on. Oh, great.
Jada, we're waiting on you, girl.
Even that one, I guess those are the students.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Alicia Turner, Director of Marketing and Communications for the Tallahassee Police Department. It is my honor to welcome everyone to the Tallahassee Police Department for today's press conference. This operation is called Stolen Innocence, brought forth from the reality that children who become victims of human trafficking have their childhood, their joy, and their innocence stolen from their grasp. At this time, I would like to bring Chief Revel to the podium to acknowledge our guests and give a timeline of the events that led to this moment.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you all for being here today. The arrest of this operation are the culmination of the diligent work from our dedicated investigators who've worked tirelessly to bring justice to the victims in this case. I cannot say enough about the work that you all did and how proud I am of each of you. I'm also very, very proud of the collaborative effort that went on once this case began taking shape, and all the agencies that you see here represented have all played a vital role in this collaboration. Before we go any further, I do want to take just a minute to recognize some of our distinguished guests. We have Department of Homeland Security Special Agent Eric Ike, United States Attorney of the Northern District of Florida, Larry Keith, Assistant State Attorney Lorena Bueno, from the Leon County Sheriff's Office, Assistant Sheriff Percy Griffin, United States Marshal Don Ladner, and also from the United States Marshal's Office, Jason Grunwald, who's commander of the U.S. Marshal Florida Fugitive Task Force. From the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Mark Perez. Our mayor, John Dailey. And my boss, Deputy City Manager Cynthia Barber. So thank you all for being here today. And again, as we move forward, I hope you will see the work and the dedication and the collaboration that went into this event. TPD Special Victims Unit investigators Beth Basker, Paul Osborne, and Mark Ray, along with Homeland Security investigator Eric Ike, were the primary investigators in this case. And if you guys would, please step forward. If you would, join me in giving them a round of applause. In November of 2018, investigators with TPD Special Victims Unit saw images of a child that were being posted on a website that advertises sex for money. The investigators set up an operation to rescue the child to ensure her safety as a protective measure. This was a pivotal point in the operation, which was later called Stolen Innocence. The investigation uncovered an enormous amount of electronic evidence that required several months to evaluate. The electronic evidence was necessary to help investigators further develop their cases and determine how many suspects were involved and to what extent. 2 years of investigative work yielded the arrest that you are seeing here today. As a result of the investigation, 72 suspects were charged with misdemeanors. The 72 charged with misdemeanors are based on this investigation. They are the buyers charged with solicitation of prostitution. And without the buyers, trafficking would not exist. 106 suspects were charged with felonies. Felony charges include lewd and lascivious battery on a child under 16 years of age, production and possession of child pornography, and human sex trafficking of a minor. 19 suspects face federal charges. Federal charges include promoting prostitution of a minor, online solicitation of a minor, enticement of a minor into prostitution, and commercial human sex trafficking of a minor. Human sex trafficking is a $150 billion industry worldwide. Florida ranks in the top 5 in the nation for reports of human trafficking. And arrests like these should serve as a reminder of our department's, as well as our partners' commitment to tireless efforts to put an end to human trafficking. I would like at this time to invite Assistant State Attorney Lorena Bueno to say a few words, followed by our U.S. Attorney Larry Keith.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lorena Bueno, and I am a felony chief of the State Attorney's Office. I'm here on behalf of the State Attorney Jack Campbell, who could not be here today. On behalf of my office, I would like to begin by thanking Chief Rebel and the Tallahassee Police Department for inviting us to be part of today's press conference. As I stand here today, thousands of children in the United States are being exploited. Estimates suggest that about 50,000 people are being trafficked in the U.S. each year. In 2019, according to the National Human Trafficking Hotline statistics, 1,887 victims, 427 traffickers, and 243 trafficking businesses were identified in the state of Florida alone. The exact numbers in the U.S. and worldwide are hard to define because human trafficking, like many crimes, lives in the dark. It is notoriously underreported. I know it's hard to believe that something like this happens here in our community, but it does. Awareness is key. Social media and the internet have allowed the world unfettered access into our homes. We have found that the most vulnerable of our children are being targeted. They are being exploited, and those abuses are being photographed and videotaped and sold on the internet. Every single image of child pornography is a permanent record of abuse and exploitation of a real child. Children with low visibility in the community, unstable home lives, mental health issues, drug issues, frequent runaways are most at risk. I say most because any child can be at risk. The average age a child enters the sex trade in the U.S. is 12 to 14 years old. 12 to 14 years old. So who can help? Anyone with an opportunity to see and know that a child is in trouble, such as a teacher, a parent, a healthcare worker, a hotel clerk, a bus driver, a friend, a cab driver, a flight attendant, and even you. When did you last cross paths with a human trafficking victim? This month? This week? This morning? Victims can be adults or children. They can be male or female. They can be sex trafficked, or they can be the victims of labor trafficking. There is no one specific sign that someone has been trafficked. If you want to learn more, there are various reliable resources available, including the PolarisProject.org. The Polaris Project was founded in 2002 and works specifically to bring awareness, information, research, and long-term solutions and responses to human trafficking. Human trafficking and the ancillary crimes surrounding it constitute a multi-billion-dollar industry. According to Human Rights First, human trafficking earns global profits of approximately $150 billion for traffickers, $99 billion which comes from commercial sexual exploitation. That industry is fueled by demand. Demand comes in the form of the men and women commonly referred to as Johns. These are some of the people that were the targets in Operation Stolen Innocence. Of the over 170 arrests, the crimes range from the felony charges of human trafficking, lewd and lascivious battery, and possession of child pornography to misdemeanor solicitation of prostitution. Every single one of these crimes contribute to the industry that allows people to be used for profit. These investigations are not easy. They take significant time and resources, and we appreciate the Tallahassee Police Department for dedicating both. I would like to single out 3 investigators from TPD: Investigator Elizabeth Bascom, Investigator Paul Osborne, and Investigator Mark Ray. I want to thank them for their hard work and diligence, and I want to thank their chain of command for supporting and investing in them in these cases. All of this could not be possible if not for the collaboration and hard work of our partners, the Tallahassee Police Department, the Leon County Sheriff's Office, the United States Marshal Service, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Homeland Security, and the United States Attorney of the Northern District of Florida. On behalf of my office, thank you. I implore you, if you are a victim, speak out. If you think you know someone who is a victim, speak out. And to contact the Human Trafficking Hotline, call 1-888-373-7888. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, I'm Larry Keith. I am the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Florida. The first duty of government at all levels of our government, local, state, and federal, is to protect our people. This first duty of government is at its highest when sex traffickers target our children. We are targeting and going after these child sex traffickers. We in local, state, and federal law enforcement are all working together as a team to dismantle their networks and to pursue, prosecute, and punish those who are involved. Operation Stolen Innocence is an excellent example of how all levels of law enforcement can put it all together and get it done to take down a child sex trafficking network right here in this community. Let me speak a little bit about the role of local law enforcement. Local law enforcement is the front line of all law enforcement in this entire country. More than 85% of law enforcement in this country is state and local law enforcement. Local law enforcement agencies know their communities like they know the backs of their hands. State Attorney Jack Campbell, Police Chief Lawrence Revel, Sheriff Walt McNeil, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And those dedicated law enforcement professionals who work with them have truly been the front line of this operation. Now, as to the federal role. Federal law enforcement relies heavily on the equal partnership of our state and local law enforcement agencies to effectively do what we do in federal law enforcement. Federal law enforcement does bring some key resources to support our state and local partners. These federal resources include skilled prosecutors, expert investigators, some very amazing technical tools like you see in the movies and watch on television shows, and very importantly, victim assistance specialists, who you will meet one in a moment that's fundamental and key to this case. Our focus is not only on bringing justice and accountability to the traffickers and to those who enable and assist them, we also focus as well on protecting, guarding, and assisting the child victims of these traffickers. We help identify and liberate the victims, and then we help put them on the path to recovery. Our lead federal prosecutor is Michelle Spavin, whose mission is to bring justice and accountability to these traffickers. Our victim assistant specialist is Ms. Kelly Doherty, whose mission is to help put the victims on a path to recovery and to help them begin normal, healthy, and productive lives. The lead federal law enforcement agencies in this operation are the Department of Homeland Security Investigations and the United States Marshal Service. Though they've been recognized a little bit already, I want to do so again with a few. I'd like Assistant United States Attorney for the Northern District of Florida, Michelle Spavin, to stand up just briefly. Thank you, Michelle. And in particular, I would like Victim Assistant Specialist Kelly Doherty to stand to be recognized as well. In addition to the wonderful state and local investigators that we have in this case, one of our federal component law enforcement members who's been recognized already, but I want to recognize him again, is Homeland Security Investigations Special Agent Eric Ivey. And we have our U.S. Marshals here with us today, including our U.S. Marshal himself, Don Ladner. They were very integral and important in executing these warrants and executing these arrests. I have to say one more thing about Michelle Spavin while we're here before we move on. She has also, in addition to being an Assistant United States Attorney bringing the federal cases, she has also been sworn in as a Special Assistant State Attorney in this case, so that she can work together with State Attorney Jack Campbell and Assistant State Attorney Lorena Bueno on the cases that will be prosecuted in the state court. In this operation, and in similar other operations, there has been tremendous teamwork, coordination, and collaboration between these local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies to put all of these state and federal cases together to detect, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these child trafficking networks, and to track the money and unlock the financial chains, and to better understand the connection of child sex trafficking networks to other forms of organized crime, violence, and corruption. But our work is not done. Regrettably, there is no finish line here. The local, state, and federal team that we have assembled here must remain in place, and it must remain vigilant. For so long as I am the United States Attorney here in the Northern District of Florida, I will do everything I can to make sure that these federal resources continue to support this team that you see here before you. I will continue to support and provide resources and assistance to the extent that I can and am able to your state attorney, your police department, and your sheriff who protect your children and guard your community. In addition to these law enforcement agencies that bring justice and accountability to those involved in sex trafficking, it is partnerships, and I will repeat it and say it again. It is partnerships among law enforcement, the private sector, academic institutions, the media, civil society, and faith-based organizations that we need. We need these partnerships for the long-term support, assistance, and recovery of these young victims. The last thing I want to say that I think is perhaps the most important theme here from my perspective is we must not overly focus on these traffickers and forget the victims. The victims need our continuing help. We must all continue to be there for them in every way that we can from whatever part of society we come from. Thank you.
All right, at this time we will take some questions. Any questions that you might have? Go ahead, we'll just kind of go down the line. So,
the girl that was originally started the investigation when you guys found her, how old was she, and where was the trafficking taking place in the city?
I believe she was 13, turned 14 during the investigation. The crimes occurred all over the city.
Where was her specific case in the city?
We're not going to give, I will tell you right now, we're not going to give any specifics about any of the cases which might in any way, shape, or form identify the victim. So just please know we're not going there. Jeff?
How unprecedented is this case? Has Tallahassee ever seen a human trafficking case of this scope, this magnitude, this number of defendants?
Not in the 30 years I've been here, and I would venture to say never have we had a case of this magnitude.
And how horrifying was it? I mean, the police reports are awful. The 13-year-old girl was living in squalor. Can you speak to just the horror of that situation?
Are you willing to speak to? Okay. There's nobody better to speak to that than Investigator Beth Basker, who just, again, has a passion like no other for the victims of these type of cases, who is tenacious in her love and drive to help these victims. So I don't think there would be anything more appropriate right now than to actually hear from her. So not to take anything away from the other investigators who are equally tenacious, but.
I think horrific is a really good word. You're talking about a child who the prolificness of it starts to be seen when she's 13, but don't kid yourself that it wasn't happening prior to it being documented or with the right tools for us to work on her case. In addition, the impact that it has on us to go through electronic evidence and realize that this was a child, 13, turning 14-year-old child who worked through her birthday as if it did not exist, who worked through Thanksgiving while we sat at tables and enjoyed our families, who worked through Christmas like it wasn't even there. Like, how do you explain how horrific that would be for a child to not have any of that? She does have things to say. She wasn't prepared to give a full statement. She was able to say that this has seriously impacted her life, that it is very difficult at times, but that she is working on getting her life back. But she wants everybody to know, and eventually will tell a judge, that this has impacted her greatly, obviously.
Is she still underage now? She's still a child, is she not a minor?
Yes.
And how is she doing? How do you...
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine. We don't want to speculate on that. She's on the road to recovery, and she's doing well, given the situation.
How many of the cases involve that single victim? You'll use the word victim plural. I guess I'm wondering how many victims were there, and how many were tied to this one girl we're talking about?
All of them are related to the one victim.
Are there other victims too?
Other victims? Yeah, again, like was mentioned earlier, this will continue. So there's no telling what we're going to uncover. Hang on, Jeff. Let's get some others.
Yes, sir, sorry.
Are all of these people who've been charged, are they all in Leon County, or is this, beyond the county borders?
Yeah, it goes beyond the boundaries of Leon County, which is why our state and federal partners are so pivotal in this.
Can you give me a range of where all these suspects are coming from?
How far? Furthest was Mississippi and Alabama. All right, I had a question over here. Well, you're looking at the power that went into it. The resources is really just the commitment to do it. When you start talking about the incredible amount of evidence that they had to go through, our forensic as experts that downloaded this information and got it to them, all of that has to be reviewed. There are hours and hours and hours of going through that. And then when you get to the point of once the people have been identified, then working with our state and federal partners to locate and arrest each of those individuals took a great deal of man hours as well. So again, it's been a 2-year investigation to get us to this point, and we've still got many, the prosecution phase still to go, which will last, over many, many more months. So as far as putting a number on it, I couldn't tell you, but tireless efforts.
Yeah. Will you be making any recommendations to the city commission? How will you guys move forward from here?
Now, the deputy city manager, the city manager, and our mayor and commissioners have been nothing but supportive. Anything I've asked for, they have given. Anything in relation to how, I don't ever even get asked, for the most part, something like this, a cost, because cost is irrelevant. And when you're talking about children, and you're talking about rescuing children, and you're talking about these type of investigations, we know that it's going on here in our town. We know that we have to address it. We know that it takes state and federal partnerships to get that done. And all of us, that's why we're standing here today. We're committed to changing this, to having more and more positive impacts and rescuing more and more children.
Is there anything the city or county can do to help victims more than what they're doing already?
I think it goes back to what State Attorney Lorena Bueno said, and that is what the city can do is what the citizens can do. And that is, when you see something, say something. If you suspect it, let us know. Let us look into it. Let us identify it. As far as policies and things like that go, all of this is, dark web kind of stuff. And so it takes those investigative efforts. Our city has been very clear on their stance, where these type of issues come up, and how we stand against that, and how they stand in support of law enforcement going after and enforcing and arresting and prosecuting these type of cases. Yeah.
Was this girl's mother involved in arranging?
I'm not going there at all, Jeff, just because anything that we say in relation to that could help identify that victim, and we're just not going to go there.
Have you all charged the people that were, aside from the Johns, the people that were operating this network? Some of these people are obviously charged with human trafficking, but were the people that were with her in the apartment, have those folks been charged?
Everyone that we could identify that had any contact with her, criminal contact with her, has been charged, and I assume we have more that will probably continue to come in. So.
You mentioned that there's more open spaces. Can you give us any sort of indication as to whether or not you've been able to sort of crack into a much larger network that's not just related to this one victim,
Well, if you look at national trends and how these things occur and how these crimes occur, we know there's more than one victim. These type of people don't operate with just one victim, and we know that. So, we are dedicated to locating other victims and rescuing them as well. I think the fact that we've taken this many felons off the street, and they will do serious prison time, certainly cracks that organization, if you want to call it that. Definitely has an impact on that. But like we've said, $150 billion industry, but every little bit helps. No, I think, like we said, I think Mississippi, Alabama is probably the furthest that we've reached so far throughout the state, southeast region.
Is anything being done to stop? A lot of these meetings happen in motels, hotels. There are people that work there. They see unusual activity. I don't know how many of them reported this. What's being done to sort of, is anything being done on that front to?
Well, we have active investigations going on constantly. Our Vice and Narcotics Unit, Special Investigations are constantly doing things to impact prostitution in our city, and those things, lead to identifying other victims, and we take that and work it in conjunction with these larger type investigations. So everything has an impact, and it does start on the local level. But we're aware of it. We train our officers how to identify it, so that when they see it, they know it. And Beth has done a lot of. I'm sorry, Mr. Has done a lot of training in that regard as well, to make sure that our officers know what this looks like, and when they see it, know to report it.
What role did drugs, street drugs, play in this?
I'm sure it's connected, but I don't know that we've made a one-to-one connection, if that's what you're asking. It's certainly a part of this, I hate to say lifestyle, but a part of this, I don't even know what word I'm looking for is there, but it's definitely intertwined in these type of crimes, for sure.
But are some of these people involved in other criminal activity? One of the people was involved somehow in one of our shootings.
I don't know of any.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do
Yes, then the answer is yes, there are several that are involved in some shootings and other felony crimes.
How do victims typically fall into sex trafficking? How do they get lured into it? How does that happen?
In fact, I'll let you answer it if you want. So, yeah.
Yeah, sure. It's actually my favorite question, but it's hard to explain because I'm afraid some people will go overboard on things. But most of the victims that I've dealt with since I've been working human trafficking cases for the Tallahassee Police Department have been juveniles. And the biggest way that they get involved in that is that they have what I would say has some compromising parts to their lifestyle. Lorena used the term, I'm trying to remember her term, but it was like less noticed children in our society, the ones who are kind of slipping through the cracks, that are running away, that don't come to school as often as they should, that nobody's keeping a clear eye on, that they're not being seen. Those children are at high risk for being manipulated. The way that children fall into human trafficking is that they are manipulated, and that manipulation becomes forceful. It may start as you need attention, and it's just a simple attention. It's a simple giving you something that you need, money for your family to buy food, clothing that your parents can't afford to buy you, shoes. There's a romancing period to it, and then the manipulation starts to turn to something more forceful and more sinister. And then they can keep you there by threatening members of your family or their survival, or if a child gets hooked on drugs, they always have that over them. But it's plain and simple manipulation in children who are not being seen, are not being taken care of quite the same way that they might need to be. Those who run away put themselves in a position of not being able to be seen. If they're outside of their parents' guardianship or outside of their normal routine, then they're vulnerable. So you have to be careful. Do I want parents to go overboard and worry about their teenagers every second of the day that they're not with them? No. But when you have a repeated pattern of someone running away or reaching out online to strangers that they don't know and inviting those communications into their lives, that's where they're putting themselves at high risk.
There are sometimes signs around town where it's like, looking for young teenagers or something like that, bring a friend, and it offers a lot of money. Is that related to sex trafficking?
I am not aware of that being anything related to sex trafficking. Could that be a ruse if somebody wanted to use it the wrong way? Yes, there are modeling agencies who look for teens for all kinds of stuff, and some of that can be totally legitimate, and it can be not legitimate. So it's things that have to be investigated. So if you're seeing something like that and you're curious, that's a really good thing to be calling the police department about, to kind of put an eyeball on it, make contact with them, see what it looks like, what it feels like.
We're going to take one more question.
Can somebody speak to the breadth of the defendants here? That they come from various walks of life. I mean, can you see professionals? Just tell me about sort of that aspect of it, the Johns and the.
Yeah, absolutely. There's you can see the variety of ages, the variety of races, the variety just in every aspect of what's involved here. So they come from all areas of our city, all economic levels and backgrounds. It's very widespread. So I thank you for that. I do want to take the opportunity, and I may be putting him on the spot a little bit, but there were several questions about the city and what we can do in support. So I'd like to give the mayor an opportunity to speak to that if you would like.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate it. Good morning. My name is John Dailey. I'm the proud mayor of the city of Tallahassee. And it's a day like today that I could not be prouder of the partnerships that we have here. And I'll get to the question in a second. First of all, let me remind you that we have one of the oldest continuous accredited police departments in the United States of America, and I could not be more proud of that. Let me also remind you that not only are many of our departments recognized, but our investigation team is nationally recognized as one of the best in the land. And for that, I'm very proud. I'm very thankful for the partnership on the federal level, on the state level, and the coordinated effort that took place in this particular case. Let me be very clear. The Tallahassee City Commission fully and strongly supports the Tallahassee Police Department. And we've got an incredible relationship with the chief and the top brass. And that's not just words. If you look at the past actions over the past 2 years, we have fully funded our police department. In fact, in this past budget cycle, we provided an additional $250,000 in our law enforcement budget, specifically to financially support some of the creative initiatives that Chief has brought to the table. If you think about just at the last meeting, we fully and unanimously supported the financial allocation for every officer to be able to replace their service firearm and to provide money for a rook, which is one of the tools that are used in law enforcement as well. While you have a city commission that comes from a layperson background with no law enforcement background, make no doubt about it, we do support Tallahassee Police Department. We support them in efforts like this. Again, I'm very proud of the partnership that we've had with the federal and the state law enforcement agencies as well. And today's a good day in Tallahassee. And personally, thank you very much.
On behalf of Chief Revel and the entire police department, we want to thank you for joining us today. Public record documents related to this case are available right now on talgov.com/OSI records. Thank you for coming and enjoy the rest of your day.